Hi, everybody.
Chris.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
Oh, again.
Hey, Vic, Rion, Danny, Lakin.
Oh,
Carrie, you look great on TV last evening.
Did I? I never watch myself.
I hate doing the same thing too, but look, sounded good too.
Great, thank you.
And I don't know if we have public members at the moment, but just to update the team with Kara and I and Amanda at the table yesterday, I've already summarized some of the public input we got, and it was all positive, supportive, and we had one or two. Can you retain some open space? Can you keep a few pieces of playground equipment in play while you build so it's not a full shutdown? Can you make sure the walkway continues to be connected? And I don't know, Kara, if you remember much more, but it was all, this is great, can't wait to see it. Nobody said this is bad or don't do it. So I think our public input to date is going to be extremely positive going forward to the city manager. And it also, we did get a few of those. I'm totally fine with it as long as you X, Y, or Z, and all of the X, Y, Zs were very easy to accommodate as far as we can tell. Is that about right, Kara?
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to hearing what folks who are participating in today's Zoom meetings have to say as well.
Wonderful. And I guess, again, I guess we keep our eye on the participant menu. Is that right? Those parks that, are there people in public that won't show up on the display board, or will they show up as well so we know that we have people that signed up? We're not sure if anybody signed up
I
yet.
see 19 participants in my
Okay.
bottom left-hand corner.
there's
Okay.
there's 12 attendees, 19 altogether. Who can I give co-host ability to so you guys can bring them in and out? Okay, I'll do that right now, Julie. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. It's good to see we have some public input today. So.
Then will the Parks Department give a little bit of intro and then we can start the slideshow?
Certainly, I can do that unless Rion or Vic or anybody wants to give the park side update. But I think, yeah, this is Bennett's would probably give most of the presentation, and then we'll open it up for Q&A.
It's yours, Chris. Sounds good.
Okay. And I'll wait just a minute here, make
Yeah.
sure everybody's logged in.
And Lakin, will you be running the slideshow from your?
I don't
PowerPoint?
I don't have access to it, but you guys all have the ability to share your screen.
Okay. I'll run it from my screen. When we are ready. Get there. So I'm glad you spoke with people yesterday and got some good input.
It was a gorgeous day, and it was nice to see all the different groups who were there.
It was very busy at the Penn Park, to be honest, is one that I'm not in as much as I am other parks. And it was cold for 2 hours, and then the sun came out, and it's like the people started popping out of the ground like flowers when the sun came out. It was really cool.
I'm at Penn Park probably 3 to 5 times a week, either at the T-ball fields, the trails, or the playground in my personal life. And it's always got a diverse group of folks there, especially in the after school hours and on the weekends.
Yep.
So.
Well, I believe if everybody's logged in on the other side there, we can get started with the presentation. My video doesn't seem to be the most happy, so I'm not sure if everybody can see me out there, but I'm Chris Genzik, the Parks and Greenway Trails Planner for the City of Charlottesville. We have a number of park staff on hand. We have Vic Garber, the Recreation Manager. We have Rion Anthony, the Parks Division Manager, I see Danny McClung's on board here. He's our project manager. I'm not sure if Dana is on today, our department director. The Parks Department's been approached by the Bennett's Village Nonprofit Foundation, who is interested in building an all-inclusive playground which you will hear more about here shortly on the presentation. And as working with the city, it was determined that Penn Park is probably the best location in the system for such a playground. We have a large parking lot. It's easy to get to. It's a regional level park, which is meant for those types of facilities. So what we're doing yesterday and today with the Zoom meeting and tonight with the Zoom meeting is making sure the public who uses the park has input into the project, comments, questions, suggestions on how to make it work properly. And so that's where the city is taking input. We will take the input that we get on the city side to the Parks and Rec Advisory Board, the city management, which may then go to council, just to make sure everybody's on board with the project. And that gives the Bennett's Village group the green light that they know the area in question that can be used for their purposes as they've intended, and they can engage design and engineering and installation professionals. The idea being Bennett's Village Foundation raises the money, manages the construction project, and once the playground is constructed, it turns it over to the city as a free public addition to our park system. So with that, I think I'll turn it over to Bennett's Village to make a presentation about what their proposal is, and then we will open it up to question and answer from the public and input.
Give me a moment to share my screen, wherever that is.
Feel free to live chat, type in your input. You can email them to Gensic, GENSIC @charlottesville.gov, like at any time while you're watching. We'll wait for them to finish their actual presentation before we open it up to verbal questions.
Kara, just give me a signal or a nod when you're ready to go forward.
Sure. So welcome everybody today, and thank you for coming to hear a little bit about our plans for building an all age and all abilities playground at Penn Park. We first approached City Council in 2019 with this idea. There is no place in Central Virginia where folks of all ages and all abilities have play space and access to structures that really let them have inclusive play. The nearest places are in Harrisonburg and in Richmond, and those places are over an hour away, and Central Virginia really needs to have a place where all of us can play. In fact, 1 in 5 members of our community have a form of disability, and many of those disabilities, the way current playgrounds are structured, prevent those individuals and those families from having equitable access to our play spaces. And I think a lot of us know, especially because of COVID, how important it is to have access to outdoor play spaces. So who are we? So we are a 501c3 nonprofit organization that's dedicated to building Central Virginia's first truly accessible and inclusive playground, and to having conversations in the community about how we can make our community more accessible in all areas of life. But play is really the place that we're focused on. And so we want to create a space for all members of our community to come together and play side by side, to play in safe ways, to play in fun, interactive, inclusive ways. Next slide. So I always like, when I'm talking about our project, to spend just a moment talking about Bennett, for whom Bennett's Village is named after. And so Bennett is my son, who was born with spinal muscular atrophy. And he actually had one of the most severe forms, and was given a terminal diagnosis, which can be obviously very devastating to hear. And in spite of that diagnosis, he had amazing care from our community, the medical team, and from his schools. And thanks to some advances in medical treatment, he actually lived well beyond the 2 years that they said he would, and he thrived. He thrived in his school, he thrived in his church, he thrived in his social network. He was very curious and very social. And with the help of his power wheelchair, which gave him some independence, His physical limitations melted away when he had access to play and his friends. The spinal muscular atrophy affected his muscles, but they did not affect his mind or his ability to love and to play. And it's not just kids who need play. Obviously, it's really important developmentally and socially, but it's important for all of us, for our physical, emotional, and mental well-being. And so I always want to, when I talk about Bennett's Village, this is not just a playground for kids. We think of this as a space where all ages, all abilities can come together and enjoy our outdoor play spaces. For Bennett, things like mulch and sand often served as barriers to play. And even in spaces where we had pavement, often if you look at the play structures on most of our playgrounds, they were not accessible to him in his wheelchair because access depended on the ability to climb steps or ladders or fake rocks. And so, you know, we would drive over an hour for him to go just be able to play without a parent or another adult having to physically pick him up and take him through the spaces. And when I talk to kids about this project, I say to them, do you want adults around right next to you when you're playing? And they always say, no. I was like, well, Bennett didn't want that either. And so what we're trying to do is to provide a safe but equitable play space where our kids and folks of all ages can play safely and independently and with their community. So our vision for a space, you know, we've talked with kids, we've talked with parents and doctors and educators and therapists and older adults and younger adults, and we have asked them what makes an inclusive play space for all? What is it you're looking for? What would make our outdoor spaces be a place that you want to go and play? And so one of the things is independent exploration. We want to have equipment that allows for individuals who are able to go explore independently without perhaps a caregiver. Sometimes they do need a caregiver, and that's okay. So we also want to create spaces that allow for that to happen as well. We want kids to be able to play side by side with their peers, regardless of their ability, regardless of any sort of physical limitations or other sorts of concerns. For some folks, we wanted to create spaces that allow for stimulation of various senses. For other folks, we actually want to make sure that we have places of quiet, meditative, contemplative spaces where maybe the outdoor space can be a calm place for them. We want to create structures and spaces that allow for play near and with caregivers, depending on ages and abilities. A wide variety of sensory experiences. So we've designed a sensory garden that looks at sight and sound and touch and smell. And while we're not encouraging taste, we certainly want to have things that are non-toxic, right? We want to provide spaces that allow for free play and directed play. I could go on and on and on about the importance of bathrooms that are functional and meet the needs of our entire community. I won't do that right now, but I'm happy to answer questions. Most of our public bathrooms actually don't meet the needs of many members of our community, and that prevents those folks from actually coming out and enjoying our spaces. So we want to take a look at our bathrooms and see what we can do to provide accommodations that are going to make safe spaces for folks and folks that function well. And then, of course, we want to design a space that is exciting and engaging and that folks want to come to, so an attractive appearance. I'm going to now turn it over to Julie, who's going to talk a little bit more about some of our plans.
I'm Julie Basic. I am the chair of the board of directors for Bennett's Village. I'm also a landscape architect by profession. And I'm going to talk more, as Kara said, about more specifics about the design of the project. So just for some background information, for those of you who aren't familiar with Penn Park or the location of this project, you can see that it's in the city of Charlottesville. If you look at the red star, it will be in Penn Park, and then the specific project location takes up the existing playground space, a little bit of the woods, and the open field between the access drive and the existing playground. So that is the general location, looking at a telescopic view there. And we will talk more about this later, but our phase 1 project is a treehouse. And you can see right here, this is the outline, a wireframe outline of the playground concept overlaid onto the current Penn Park aerial. So this is the type of space, the size of the space that we're considering at this point. We have a concept design that is just a vision. It will be tweaked over time to address comments that we hear in these meetings from the city of Charlottesville, from our own board, and from other stakeholders. But our current phase 1 project, you can see, is some type of tree house that extends over into the woods, over a wooded slope. And again, we'll talk more about this later. Kara did a great job explaining the vision and some of the different spaces and ideas that we are incorporating into the concept for the playground. This bubble diagram lays out exactly what she said, but only in kind of a visual spatial format. So you can see how our designers laid out the concept and how they came up with how the pieces fit together. So you can see there's a, I'm not sure if I have a pointer. Can people see my mouse?
We can.
Yes.
Okay, so there's a resting area for those quiet times when people need quiet. This is the treehouse nature play area. Sensory play, as Kara discussed, that to stimulate all 5 senses. Hill play to get the feeling of movement, of possibly rolling or walking down sloped surfaces. So many people in wheelchairs or with mobility issues can only adapt or have access to level ground. So what would it be like to, within a controlled environment, be able to move up and down in a hilly, uneven surface? There's an open space in here. This light green area is the free movement play area, which is what we're considering now kind of an open space, open grass area. Hide and seek. So many people, adults, children, people of all ages and all abilities really enjoy playing hide and seek with their peers. It's a fun thing to be able to be surprised, move around in ways that you normally don't do. So we'll show some examples of what we mean by hide and seek later. There is a small splash pad area for people of all abilities that would include some kind of misters. Several people with disabilities, several types of disabilities, have trouble controlling their body temperature, especially when it's too hot outside. So we have seen other parks install misters. So if your body temperature is rising beyond what you can control, you can roll over the mister, walk over the mister, and cool yourself down and still not have to leave for the day. There is a small child area for people with toddlers or infants with disabilities, or just toddlers and infants in general to play together. We also have a picnic area and an event space and an entryway right here that would have a nice entry pavilion method of getting from the parking lot into this overall space. And tying this all together is this red line, which we call the track. This is a circuitous path that will be made of an accessible material. It could be rubberized surface, it could be concrete. We're still working out those details. Again, this is just a concept plan, but it is a path. It could be used as a racetrack at some point. It has a loop format, so people with memory difficulties, especially in the Alzheimer's communities, will always be able to find their way back to where they started. It's a way of organizing the space, but also helping people keep track of where they are in the world. We have the intention of putting a fence around this area, the entire playground. A lot of people have elopement issues themselves or with the people that they're taking care of. There are children who just by nature want to run. There are children with disabilities who feel the need to escape, to run, and having this space enclosed by a fence will help the caregivers better manage the situation. So this is the concept plan. We hired a firm out of Baltimore, Maryland by the name of Mahan Reichiel. And they did a concept plan based on all the discussions that we had with the stakeholder groups that Kara talked about, with our board of directors, with the city of Charlottesville, with numerous people. And they came up with this plan for what could be located and built at Penn Park in the space that we have allotted from the city of Charlottesville. So if you think about those bubbles that we just talked about, this is our nature play area and the tree house that comes out over the slope into the woods. Here's our sensory area right here with different things to touch, feel, smell, and as Kara mentioned, possibly taste. We haven't gotten that far yet to figure out how to do that. Here is our hill area with some kind of structure on it. We haven't, we're still working on what these exact structures are. Our hide and seek area, the thought is to have some kind of vertical wall that you could walk around, run around, roll around. Perhaps it is some kind of serpentine concrete pipe. This is just one idea. Here is our small splash pad area, the younger person area right here for infants, toddlers, young kids, our entrance pavilion, entranceway right here between the parking lot before you get to the larger playgrounds, the picnic and seating area, and this walking track or rolling track, however you choose to get around, that connects the entire space together and organizes the entire space. One thing that we hadn't mentioned yet, these two lines right here is a cableway. We envision a cable that you can sit on a chair or ride down. It's similar to a zip line, but it's a cableway that anyone of any ability, whether you can sit up on your own or not, could use that and get the feeling of flying down that zip line and cableway, just as any other person would. Kara, do you have anything to add about the concept plan?
Just to reiterate that it is a concept plan, right? We don't have specific pieces of equipment. It's not set in stone. This is the concept designs from the architecture firm that we talked with, and we're really interested to hear what pieces of this resonate. We will be building it in phases. I think that Julie already said that, but so this is not something that's going to be built tomorrow. And each section, would sort of be built out based on what the resources that we have and the infrastructure in the interest of the community. So we're really eager to hear what pieces of this resonate with you, what pieces, you have questions about. Yeah, we're excited to share it.
So there are a couple other things that we can mention in the concept plan. This area right here is what we call the donut swing. And there's something similar at Reeves Park now. It is a round swing that helps if you can lay back on it and swing. If you're not able to sit up on your own, it gives you the feeling of movement. It helps with your proprioceptive movement. And so that would be one specific piece of equipment. And these round domes here are an idea of what could be placed in the park and the playground to deal with or address people with overstimulation issues who need to hide away for a moment, who want to perhaps watch the activity but not get involved in the mix and the noise. You just need to take a step back, and they've been lovingly called the hidey holes. So you can peek out and see what's going on. Your caregiver can also see into these spaces and make sure that you are doing all right. But if you need a break from the hustle and bustle of the playground, you can take that break in something such as these spaces.
You also, I was going to say, you didn't talk about the bird's nest, which is one of my very favorites.
Do you want to talk about it? So it's up here.
That's another space that we conceive of as having multiple purposes. If somebody needs to calm down, if someone needs sort of a quiet space sort of surrounded by trees and nature, it could be a space where folks come together to tell stories, read books. But we loved the architects to sort of thought of like a giant's bird's nest. We thought that was a fun, playful kind of thing. Other specific things we talked about were things like merry-go-rounds and other pieces of equipment that were designed so that folks with mobility issues would be able to safely enter and exit in a way that's not typical. And I think that's that small little circle. Yeah, exactly where your pointer is. All right, I'll let you keep going.
It's okay. So the landscape architects did a perspective view of the concept plan overlaid onto the site. So this gives you a better idea of what things could look like in 3 dimensions. We have our small person area here, the seating area right here, an idea of some type of entrance pavilion, entryway. Here, this is the cableway. You can see the red walking track that goes all the way through the site, organizing that space again. Our donut swing right here. This is the nature play back here. You can see a hint of the treehouse reaching off into the woods back here. Sensory play next to it. We come back to our hill play and hide and seek, and finally with the spray splash pad, excuse me.
Another thing that we, oh, sorry, I was just gonna say another thing that we've talked about is making sure that there are electrical plugs throughout the space. One of the things that we found out when we talked with folks in our community, not only for things like a power wheelchair, which if you've ever tried to manually move a power wheelchair, it weighs 350 to 400 pounds. I personally cannot do that by myself. So, but also just many of our community members rely so heavily upon cell phones to communicate with the world, for emergencies, for all sorts of things. And so trying to think about the ways in which we can incorporate that into our play spaces as both a safety measure, but also to facilitate all aspects of our life is a sort of a design consideration that isn't in most current playgrounds and outdoor play spaces.
So the next few slides will be some benchmark images of ideas, basically a vision board or a palette board, however you want to describe it. This one has some images of what the cableway could look like after it's built. You can see there are lots of different seating options, from fabric swings to upright hard plastic swings. There's lots of ways that we can make something like this inclusive. So this is, you can see that donut swing up top. There's an idea for a mister that comes out of the ground rather than a pole mounted mister. The domes at the bottom, ideas for those hidey hole spaces or the quiet contemplative spaces for someone who needs to escape for a moment or just take a moment by themselves and surveil rather than be in the mix. This is Kara's bird's nest. Some ideas for that. There's a bird feeder, just to talk about some nature play. Perhaps we could have school children or local artists make different birdhouse or bird feeders. We also want to make sure that this is a community collaborative idea. We will have a contractor build the heavy parts, but we want this to be something that represents Charlottesville, the larger region, Albemarle County. We plan on working with local artists, regional artists, as much as possible to talk about murals, sculpture, how we can get people involved in making art that represents themselves, their community, and the larger region. So this is back to the treehouse, our phase 1 project that we are currently focusing our fundraising on right now. This is an elevation, what it would look like if you were standing basically on the side of the hill. Again, concept, but an idea of what it might look like. So there's a willow tunnel that is basically located where the current playground is. The idea is that a person would move through the willow tunnel, there's my cursor, open up to a boardwalk that would access a tree house on stilts. So there is no grade change between the current playing field slash playground. So anyone of any mobility ability could move into the tree house, and they would have the experience of being in the treetops. And it is very hard for someone with mobility issues or disabilities to experience nature on their own. So our thought was, if we have a tree house amongst the canopy of trees with the birds and perhaps seeing a squirrel or two moving around, opens up a whole nother world for anyone who's, anyone who has not experienced nature fully. Kara, did you want to talk more about that experience?
Well, one thing I would note is that the Willow Tunnel would not be added right now because the current playground is going to stay for the moment. So in case anyone was like, oh no, well then how is that stuff gonna work? That's a future feature. But also just as a mom who had a kid who loved to be high and who loved to be amongst the trees, climbing with him was not really something that was a possibility. And also the idea with this treehouse design is that it's actually 2 levels. I don't know how many of you participating on the call today spend a lot of time at Penn Park, but kids love to go over sort of the side and into the trees and go play down in that area. And that's one of the things that I always noted was Bennett always wanted to go down there as well. And someone would have to carry him down there. For those of us, and as a person in my 40s and my hips don't work quite as well, traversing that space right now is a little difficult. So we thought it would be great if not only could we provide a treehouse that provides a sort of a 360 view of the trees, but also then provides a switchback or a safe way to go down and interact in that bottom space for everyone, and not just for those who can scramble over the side of the wall easily and who don't have the hip issues that I am beginning to work with and live with. Yeah.
That's great. So the tree house, whatever form it finally takes, we will work with the designer to have selective tree removal. We don't want to clear cut the slope by any means. It's on posts, which will be minimal. Rather than giant piers, we're trying to make as little ground disturbance and as little tree cutting as possible in order to put this in place.
It won't actually be attached to a tree. That is something I'd like to.
No, it won't. Yeah, the trees out there.
There isn't a good tree to stick something of that size and hold that much weight.
Yeah. That's a good point. A lot of the trees out there are volunteer, such as hackberry. There's a lot of scrubby undergrowth, which has its own beauty, but we are going to do our best to maintain the wooded experience, which is the whole point of having the tree house out there. So now down to the details of how we're going to accomplish this. Our overall fundraising goal, if we built the entire concept plan that you saw today at once, would be $5 million. And you may ask why it would cost so much for a playground. And the answer is that a lot of this is custom. You can buy off-the-shelf equipment, but it is not truly accessible. There's usually a step to overcome. A lot of playground companies say they are accessible by having a transfer station, which is actually a 12-inch drop that you can pick up. Usually it's picking up a child and taking them out of a chair and putting them on the transfer station so they can crawl up the steps. This is not the experience that we want people to have. We want people to have independent movement on and around our equipment. So in order to accomplish that, a lot of things will be custom, like the tree house, the bird's nest. We might need, we could probably find some recycled materials for the hide and seek, but in order to put that upright and install it in a way that is safe, a contractor needs to figure out how to do that. Another big cost is the surfacing. A lot of playgrounds that you've seen have the shredded wood mulch. It's called engineered wood fiber mulch. And that is not conducive to someone in wheels or someone on wheels. It's not helpful for people pushing strollers, people pushing themselves in wheelchairs, people pushing other people in wheelchairs, people who are wearing shoes with heels. So it is a protective surface, but it is not truly accessible for all people. So our plan is to make as much of the playground in rubberized surface as possible. So if you are wondering what rubberized surface is, if you've been to Forest Hills Park, they have the tan and black material with kind of spongy surface. It's called, the technical term is poured in place rubberized surface. So that is a larger expense than regular wood mulch. And so the $5 million goal, that's why it costs so much, because we are going to take the time to do this right, to make sure it is made with materials that will last a long time, that are as easy to maintain as possible, that are conducive to accessibility for multi-generational people. We want to do it, again, we want to do it right, and we want to make sure it lasts a long time and it looks great and it's as fun and as comfortable as possible. That's where the price tag comes from. And we are planning on breaking this into phases, because $5 million is a big chunk of money at one time. And that's where that treehouse comes in. That's our phase 1 project. So we are currently fundraising for that. We are seeking an architect or a design build contractor, working with someone to get the plans together. So Bennett's Village, and Chris had mentioned this earlier, Chris Gemsick had mentioned that we are providing the funding and the construction management. And we will be giving this as a gift to the city of Charlottesville for the community to enjoy, hopefully in perpetuity. And our fundraising strategy, how are we going to get to $5 million? We're going to need everybody and everyone on board. We're going to need grants. We're going to ask companies for sponsorships. We're going to seek out people for direct donations. We're going to hold fundraising events. Perhaps, and hopefully many of you have been to one of our smaller fundraising events. We had an event at Torchy's Tacos last week to raise money. We've had events at Penn Park. Kara, where else did we have some fundraising? Random Row. We had a bingo night there.
We've worked with several restaurants. We've also done some movement events that people can do at home. You know, COVID sort of, for many nonprofits, COVID required a shift in fundraising strategies. So a lot of our fundraising events over the past few years have actually been ones that we could do virtually. But we are hopeful that we can begin shifting to more in-person events.
Yes. And so partnerships is another option, working with groups either in kind or sharing resources through perhaps, you know, hospitals, medical staff, that kind of thing. And then at some point requesting of both the city and county if they can work us into their capital improvement project as a funding request. We've also met with Sally Hudson, one of our state representatives, to talk about if we can get Bennett's Village some state funding, which is not a new concept. There is a project out in a similar playground out in Seattle that received funding from the state of Washington to assist with their design and construction budget. So what we need is to raise the money. For the first phase of the treehouse, we are targeting $500,000. That is a conservative estimate. We hope to reach that amount to make sure that we have enough for unexpected expenses. There's permitting, design costs, construction costs, plan approvals, a number of expenses to get something built. But that is our target number. We also need your help. We need your input today. We need community support from you, your friends, your family, your coworkers, anyone who's interested in helping us, either by spreading the word, talking to your city councilors, your board of supervisors, because even though this is located in the city, it is a regional park that draws people from multiple counties, not just the city of Charlottesville. If you have a school that is interested in either helping us in kind or through volunteers or through donations, that'd be great. And we always need volunteers at our fundraisers, we are currently seeking a few more board members to round out our board, and people like an events coordinator. We could also use any help that you have to offer. And last, support and advocacy from city staff and volunteers, such as the Parks and Rec Advisory Board, the city manager, and the city council. We've spoken with all those people, but we just want to reiterate that this is going to be a collaborative effort from everybody basically who lives in the area to make this happen. We need your help, and we would love to hear from you. So our next steps before we take questions and comments, we are going to design and fundraise for the treehouse phase 1. We're going to continue fundraising for the overall project and our next phases. We are going to continue reaching out to the community through educational sessions, working with UVA, working with schools, and we're going to continue discussions with city staff and city council to make sure that we are all on the same page, moving forward together, and we understand what needs to happen to get this project built. And so now we can take questions or record some comments.
While folks are thinking about those questions, I would just say that Julie mentioned that we do outreach and education. We're happy to come talk with your community group. I've been talking with a Boy Scout troop. I'm going to go out and talk with them about inclusive play, and we have projects for all age ranges in terms of books and activities that we can do to try and help them think about how to make their community more inclusive. And we are happy to go do that. And it's actually one of my very favorite things to do. So if you have a group that you think would be interested in hearing more about this project and about how we as individuals can make our communities more accessible and inclusive, please do reach out, and we'll be happy to come talk to you.
Deputy Director of Parks and Rec. Mr. Parks, do you think we can manage this the same way we manage City Council, where you can ask the community to raise their hands and then you let them in to talk and ask questions?
Sure. So if you're in the audience and you have a question or comment you'd like to make, just hit the raise hand icon and I will bring you into the panel and you can ask your questions. I don't see any hands being raised.
It's okay. Maybe everyone is so stunned and awed that they're going to go out.
Okay, here we have one. The first person we have is Christine. So I'm going to allow her to talk.
You hear me now?
You can.
Yes.
Great. Hi. Yeah, so I am a city resident, and I am a retired special educator, and I worked as an educational consultant at the UVA Children's Hospital for 36 years. So I didn't really know Bennett well. I met him maybe once or twice in passing, but I knew a lot of children who had a variety of special challenges. And I know very well how very needed this playground is for the children in this community and for children who come and visit us and come through the hospital as well. And so I'm really excited about this first effort with the treehouse, because I think it'll give children opportunities to meet many of your goals, your vision for independence and play and experiencing nature. And as a master gardener and being very interested in horticultural therapy, I'm especially interested in having those nature experiences and looking forward to that sensory garden as well, of course. I'm blind. And so I am particularly interested in aspects of the playground that will offer individuals opportunities for all types of accessibility. And I do have one question, and it's really, kind of a cross your T, dot your I kind of thing that you really haven't addressed yet, and you're not ready to, but it's just, like kind of put it on the to-do list way down at the bottom. It's not there yet, but signage will be something that will need to be addressed at some point. And I'm not thinking Braille sign because it's such a limited audience for that, but just in terms of thinking about your signs and making the signs, thinking about how your signs will be accessible will be something that you'll need to consider. And the other question I had that you may be able to answer is, I couldn't see your slides. And so I'm just, and you may have, it may have been evident in your illustrations, but where are the bathrooms? You were talking about the bathrooms. Are they like at the entrance?
So we are, for the moment, going to retain the current bathroom structure as is for a variety of reasons that will stand. But yes, our goal
They'll be
is
expensive. So.
But our goal is for there to be is to build a second set of bathrooms at the entrance. That is absolutely a really good point. That entrance pavilion space, making it as close to the entrance as possible, we think is really important. When that will get built, in part, will depend on,
Of course.
Funding. But yeah, you make a very good point. And Christine, I love that you brought up signage. We are already talking about that in a number of ways, although I will continue to be thinking about low vision or no vision folks. But we are actually, even at this moment, working on a communication board to place at the site now or
That's
this
the kind of
year.
thing. Exactly.
Yeah, so we have a few drafts. I hope that will go in 2022. One, I mean, obviously there can be need for multiple communication boards for our nonverbal members of our community. We also have been talking about signage, and this is a place where working with local community members and artists, I've had a request from some parents to come up with some welcoming language for this space, to talk about how all are welcome here, and to not be afraid if someone looks different. And so we're talking about ways that we can perhaps work with the schools and work with a community member to create some interesting signage that is welcoming and inclusive. But I'm also eager to think about other ways that we can create signage that helps navigate the spaces and in ways that are helpful for all types of folks.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think that'll be good. I think it's going to be a wonderful space for just, as you say, cross-generational as well. I think that having the accessibility issues available will be good for children as well as seniors and anyone who has, the surfacing will be good for anyone, like even with a walker or, like a roller thing, so I think it's great. So I'm think that you're on your way. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Other
Anyone else?
questions?
Yeah, anyone else that would like to have a question or a comment, you can hit the raise hand icon, or if you're calling in from a phone, *9. You guys might have just blown them away. Oh, here go one. Next up, we have Heather.
Hi there. My name is Heather. I met you all last summer when our son, who has special needs, was playing. We were just on a walk at Penn Park, and I met you, Kara and Julie, and was like, oh my gosh, I was just thinking of you guys. I was thinking of this project and how amazing it will be. And then I went into hibernation for the winter, and I apologize. I'm from Florida, so that's what I do. But I'm emerging now, and I think I emailed you yesterday, Julie, and I just drafted my email because I think this project is amazing, and it's really touched my heart just with our own son, and I can't wait to get more involved. And I appreciate this presentation because navigating the website is great, but this also was just really organized and helped me put more into words what I would like to say to people when I reach out to them about the project. So I just want to say, hey, that I'm here and I'm tuning in, and this is so great.
Thank you, Heather. And that's a good idea. Maybe, Kara, we can get this presentation as a PDF on the website.
Yep, maybe with some words along with it.
Yes.
For absolutely. And Heather, we owe you an email back. I know, but we spent all day getting input at the site yesterday, and I haven't had a chance to respond. But you're on the list.
Up next we have is Haley.
Hi guys, I also met you at the park last summer and I love what you're doing. I think this presentation was spot on and I love seeing your vision and how it's going to come together. I did have a question about, I guess the start date depends on the funding. Is that where we are right now?
I'm sorry, Haley, I can't hear you.
Oh. I'm going to put it in the chat.
Yeah.
Oh, this.
I believe she was asking about the start date for construction, but we'll see what the chat comes through.
Okay.
Yes.
So it
So
all
we don't-
depends on how quickly we can raise the funding for the construction portion of the treehouse. We have received a very generous grant from the Virginia Outdoors Fund to pay for the design and the plans, but we are still fundraising for the treehouse, the actual materials and construction to put it in the ground or above the ground. So the goal would be to start construction. Let's see if Kara's eyes agree with me in 2023, because we will need to apply for some grants. If we're lucky, we can get a donor to fund a good portion of it, or a sponsor who would like their name attached to the treehouse or some other. We have a sponsorship chart. Different donor levels and benefit levels. If anyone is interested in that, you can reach out to us or go to bennettsvillage.com. But really, if it depends on how quickly we can raise the money for the construction portion. But we'd love to have it started in 2023.
I think that's a safe estimate.
Okay.
I don't see any more hands raised right now.
That may be perfect timing. We're about an hour in. I think excellent presentation, everybody. Excellent questions from everyone. If there are any follow-ups, my email, gensic@charlottesville.gov, is where we're kind of the collection point for all of the comments, which will then get put together. I'm already putting together comments from yesterday, from phone calls and from emails, all into one document. So at some point, these comments will all be in one form for people to view and passed again along to upper management, just so they're aware of our public input sessions. We do have another public input session tonight at 6 on Zoom. I believe that's the last formal public input session, but we will obviously take public input throughout the process. So with that on the city end, I think we're good. Does Bennett's Village have any closing words for this Zoom session? And we will see folks tonight at 6 as well. And I see
No, I just want to
the
thank
comment
Parks
I'll
and Rec.
copy over here just came in.
Oh, you said someone else just came on?
Just a comment that says they've enjoyed
In the
learning
chat.
more.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. From our perspective, or I'm sorry, Julie, you were about to talk.
No, I was just going to thank Parks and Rec for working with us on this project and being great partners. And we look forward to working with you in the future. And thank you to all the people who logged on today to hear us talk about the project, which means a lot to us personally.
Yeah, and I would just invite folks, obviously, if you have feedback related to the designs or questions related, send it on to Chris. But if you are interested in learning about how you or someone you know can get more involved, please reach out to us. It's bennettsvillage@gmail.com and bennettsvillage.org is our website. And so we would love to hear from you. We would love to have you help us get this thing in the ground further and faster.
Great. Well, thank you, everybody. And we'll see a lot of you again tonight at 6. And we're looking forward to moving forward with the project.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Great job.
So .org. It is village.org. Sorry.